Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content I've been putting up, be sure to subscribe so you always know when a new video pops up. Now that we got that part out of the way, let's get into the video. Final Fantasy XIV is a massive game with thousands of hours of content. What I'm going to do here is break down some of the major plot points for those of you who want to know more about Eorzea, but may not have time to experience it all firsthand. This time, we're covering the second part of the hunt for the Cardinal Virtue Lamitt during the Healer Role Questline. When we last left off, you and Giat had faced off against Lamitt, and after the Echo showed you a vision of her acquiring a spell from a Ronkan ruin with the hope of healing her sister, you and Giat went your separate ways for a bit while she did some research and drank. I'm pretty sure there was more drinking than researching, but you gotta take what you can get sometimes. When you meet back up with her in the Crystarium, Giat has indeed been reading a lot about ancient Ronkan civilizations, but she hasn't found anything about Lamitt's magic. She did find out that Lamitt's sister would have been in Tamra, Giat's hometown. She tells you to meet her there, although she forgets to tell you how to get there. Fortunately, this won't be your first trip to the Dwarf City, and you know your way around. The place Giat wants to show you is an old tunnel system in the back of the city. When she opens it, a Sin Eater comes flying out, but it was nothing she couldn't deal with. Before the flood that destroyed the first, sick dwarves lived in the tunnels. A disease called stone blight had started spreading through the population and began turning people into stone. No one knew where it came from or how to cure it, but it was contagious, so they locked the infected dwarves in the blight warrens. The story activates the Echo, giving you a vision of Lamitt, Ardbert, and the rest of the crew talking to the Dwarven Elder after Lamitt had returned from the Ronkan ruins with her magic. It had worked, and she managed to heal her sister and the others afflicted with the illness. However, it was against Dwarven law to enter the blight warren, and having broken multiple rules beforehand, the Elder exiles Lamitt. Ardbert gets angry, but Lamitt accepts the judgment of her people. She'd expected this to happen when she had first left home, and she was okay with it. No longer a dwarf, she removes her helmet, but to her surprise, her sister and the other dwarf she healed decide to leave as well. Because, while they had been locked in the blight warrens, they had removed their helmets so they could breathe easier. Having broken the rules too, they brand themselves to exiles and head off into the world with their faces bare. Ardbert asks if Lamitt is sure that she's okay with this because he's more than willing to beat up the elders for her. Since he's gotten so much stronger than he was when she'd found him on the side of the road, he could actually do it, but she doesn't want him to. There's more important things on her mind. They have no idea what started the disease, but she believes that it may be the same creature that they've been dealing with, the Shadowkeeper. And if it takes giving up her home to save her people from that monster, she's more than willing to do it. When you wake back up, you find that Giat's Sin Eater wasn't dead at all, so she had to deal with it again. Funny enough, she had already figured that Lamitt had cured Stoneblight, but knowing that she had saved them from the illness and had been exiled anyway seems to really bother the dwarf, and she leaves in silence, asking for you to leave her alone with her thoughts for a moment. When you get back together, the first thing you realize is that this is the first time Giat doesn't greet you with a snarky comment, so you pick up the slack, greeting her with an insult of your own that snaps her out of her stupor. It also reminds her of the news that she has about Lamitt. The Sin Eater that she had killed in the Blight Warrens caused Lamitt to show up and revive it. Seeing that made her realize how Lamitt was choosing which eaters to revive. The dwarves that Lamitt had cured had left Tamra, and while the village wasn't damaged by the flood, the dwarves who left wouldn't have been so lucky, which means they became Sin Eaters, and Lamitt is still healing the same people who she had fought to save when she was alive. All of this gives Giat an idea. A stupid one, but an idea nonetheless. The last time Lamitt saw those dwarves, they weren't wearing helmets, so since her Sin Eater form is reacting off of instinct and not actually thinking, if you put a dwarven helmet on the Eaters, Lamitt may not recognize them, and if she doesn't recognize them, she won't heal them. This has got to be the stupidest idea ever, which means it might actually work, or get you killed. However, there's no telling whether putting a helmet on Lamitt's head will stop her from healing herself, but you won't know until you try, and it's not like you have any better ideas anyway. It won't take long for you to get your opportunity to test this little theory either, since Lamitt was recently seen in the area. All you have to do is take down a few Sin Eaters, and she's bound to show up. You deal with some Eaters while Giat goes to grab some helmets. Then it's time to wait. Sure enough, Lamitt shows up, and after telling you to try to avoid dozing off this time, the two of you attack. Lamitt resurrects the fallen Sin Eater, but the ridiculous plan of slapping a helmet on the creature's head actually stops her from healing him. She summons more and more Sin Eaters, but Jihad brought a lot of helmets. When the final Eater falls, Jihad charges in to slap a helm on Lamitt's head, but the mage catches her with a spell, knocking her down and destroying the last helmet. But it isn't the last helmet at all. Jihad does have one more. Knowing what it'll cost her though, Jihad charges in, removing her own helmet and placing it on Lamitt's head. The trick works, and Lamitt does stop healing herself. However, it's at that moment that you remember that Lamitt had reached max level long before she died and has quite a few tricks up her sleeve. But in the end, the pair of you bring her down once and for all, causing her to explode and leave behind the very crystal she'd found in the Ronkan ruins. Touching it causes Lamitt's memories to manifest for you and Jihad, claiming that she broke tradition only because it was the only way to save her sister and her people. Seeing the truth of Lamitt's past and why she made her choices causes Jihad to regret the way she had judged the other woman before. Knowing that she suffered so much for her people causes Jihad to have a new respect for the former warrior of darkness and a greater joy for finally being able to allow the woman to rest. With the mission completed, it's time for Jihad to do what she does best and head back to the Crystarium for a drink. And since she can never go home now that she removed her helmet in front of you, she decides to give Lamitt's way a try and live her life as an exile. She thinks it's only fair, since the elder who had exiled Lamitt so long ago was Jihad's great-grandfather. This concludes the story of the Cardinal Virtue Lamitt. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video.